You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. Before we dive in, I need to make my usual apology. My Hebrew pronunciation isn't always the best. That's because this voice isn't a real human voice. It's an AI-generated one. So sometimes when I try to say Hebrew names, I sound like your uncle who insists on ordering sushi in the thickest Brooklyn accent possible. Bear with me, we'll get through it together. Today's topic is the book of Obadiah, or as some might say, Obadiah, or Obadiah, or, well, you get the idea. However you pronounce it, Obadiah is the shortest book in the entire Hebrew Bible. That's right. If the Bible were Netflix, Obadiah would be that 15-minute short film wedged between the epic trilogies. Blink, and you'll miss it. But just because it's short doesn't mean it's not packed with powerful themes, drama, and a big message that still resonates today. Let's unpack it, Jewish for Dummies style. First, some background. The name Obadiah means servant of God. That's a solid biblical name, like naming your kid loyal employee today. We actually don't know much about Obadiah the person. Unlike Isaiah, Jeremiah, or Ezekiel, who each have full resumes and dramatic life stories, Obadiah kind of just shows up, drops one powerful prophecy, and then leaves the stage. It's like the friend at a wedding who gives a short, memorable toast and then disappears before anyone can ask him to dance. Scholars think Obadiah lived sometime after the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BCE, when the Babylonian Empire stomped in and wrecked the place. His prophecy is directed not against Babylon, though, but against Israel's neighbor, Edom. Now, who were the Edomites? They were descendants of Esau, Jacob's brother. Remember Jacob and Esau, the twins who fought in the womb, traded birthrights for stew, and had sibling rivalry on a biblical scale? Their descendants carried that family drama forward, and it shows up in Obadiah's short but fiery words. Here's the big conflict. When Jerusalem was destroyed, the Edomites didn't exactly lend a helping hand. In fact, according to Obadiah, they stood by, cheered, and maybe even looted a little. Imagine your house burns down, and your neighbor doesn't call the fire department, but instead live streams it on TikTok while grabbing your Wi-Fi router on the way out. That's basically the accusation against Edom. Obadiah's message is crystal clear. Don't gloat over your brother's misfortune. Don't stand by while he suffers, and definitely don't profit from his pain. These are timeless lessons. In a way, Obadiah is less about ancient geopolitics and more about how we treat others, especially family. Even when relationships are messy, and Jacob and Esau's was the messiest, there's still a line you don't cross. Edom crossed it. And in Obadiah's eyes, that meant their downfall was coming. The prophecy predicts Edom's destruction, and by extension, warns everyone that arrogance and cruelty lead to collapse. Karma in biblical form. Now let's zoom out. Edom wasn't just any neighbor. Geographically, Edom lived in the rocky, mountainous region south of Israel, full of natural fortresses. If you've seen pictures of Petra in Jordan, with those dramatic red cliffs and carved-out buildings, you're basically looking at ancient Edomite territory. They were confident in their defenses. It's like living in a gated mansion with security cameras and thinking, nothing can touch me. Obadiah says, don't be so sure. He describes Edom as an eagle soaring high, making its nest in the stars. But even from there, God will bring them down. That image is vivid, like telling someone with 10 million Instagram followers that fame won't save them from bad behavior. In short, Obadiah takes Edom's pride, both in geography and attitude, and flips it into their vulnerability. It's a classic biblical mic drop. The higher you lift yourself in arrogance, the harder the fall when reality catches up. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Obadiah isn't just finger-pointing at Edom. He uses Edom as Exhibit A for a bigger principle, the day of the Lord. In biblical language, that's the moment when God evens the score, when injustice gets corrected, and when nations answer for how they treated others. Think of it as the ultimate accountability day, way before HR departments existed. Obadiah warns that what you do to others will boomerang back at you. As you have done, it shall be done to you, he says. That's not just a catchy proverb. It's the biblical version of what goes around comes around. For the Jewish people, who had just suffered through Jerusalem's destruction, this was a message of hope. God sees, God remembers, and God will act. It's also a warning for everyone else. Don't think you can just stand by and do nothing when others suffer. Neutrality in the face of injustice is not neutral at all. Let's pause and think culturally. Obadiah's message is tiny but mighty, and that's why it's been quoted and studied for centuries. In fact, Jewish tradition includes Obadiah in the collection of the 12 minor prophets. Not minor because they're less important, but because their books are short. If the prophets were a band, Isaiah and Jeremiah would be the lead singers with big arena tours, while Obadiah is that indie artist who puts out one hauntingly beautiful single that critics can't stop talking about. Sometimes one track is enough to make an impact, and if you think about it, short doesn't mean shallow. Modern life actually proves this. Tweets, TikToks, and memes can be short but pack a punch. Obadiah is like the original viral post, concise, sharp, and unforgettable. The lesson is clear. You don't need 1,000 verses to say something meaningful. Sometimes less really is more. Now let's dig into the theme of sibling rivalry, because that's really at the heart of Obadiah. The fight between Jacob and Esau didn't end with the two brothers hugging it out in Genesis. Their descendants kept the tension alive for centuries. The message here feels painfully familiar. How many family feuds stretch across generations? Whether it's the Hatfields and McCoys, the Montagues and Capulets, or two siblings still fighting over grandma's brisket recipe, grudges have a way of outliving the original fight. Obadiah reminds us that when families let anger fester, the fallout gets bigger and uglier. Instead of healing, Edom chose bitterness. Instead of helping, they gloated, and that choice defined their fate. The book is like a warning label. Unresolved family drama can spiral into national disaster, which, let's be honest, is a lesson just as relevant at your next family Seder as it is in ancient history. Another fascinating detail, Obadiah ends with a vision of restoration. While Edom faces downfall, Israel's future is painted with hope. The people will return, the land will be restored, and God's kingdom will be established. In other words, despair is not the final word. For a book that's basically one long paragraph of fire and fury, that little glimpse of renewal is like a rainbow after a storm. It reminds us that even in the darkest times, Judaism keeps this stubborn belief and hope. It's the same spirit you see throughout Jewish history. Exile followed by return, destruction followed by rebuilding. If Obadiah were turned into a movie, the first half would be a gritty documentary about betrayal, and the ending would be a hopeful montage with uplifting music. Small book, but it captures the rhythm of Jewish resilience in a nutshell. So why should you care about Obadiah today beyond Bible trivia? Because its themes are timeless. Pride goes before a fall. Don't gloat when others stumble. Help family even when the relationship is complicated. And don't be neutral when injustice happens. Silence makes you complicit. Those aren't just ancient ideas, they're reminders we still need. Think about social media. When people jump into the comment section just to gloat at someone's failure, that's basically the Edom playbook. When people choose not to speak up against bullying, that's also Edom territory. Obadiah challenges us to do better. His prophecy might be short, but it's one of those messages that echoes louder the more you think about it. And honestly, if you're only going to read one chapter of the Bible, Obadiah isn't a bad choice. It's like the espresso shot of prophecy, strong, concentrated, and guaranteed to wake you up. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Obadiah may only be 21 verses long, but its punch is unforgettable. In just a few sentences, it tackles pride, justice, family loyalty, and hope. That's efficient storytelling if I've ever seen it. If you've learned anything today, maybe it's this. Don't be like Edom. Don't gloat, don't stand by, and don't think your fortress makes you invincible. Instead, be the person who shows up when others are down, who heals old wounds, and who believes that hope is always possible, even in hard times. Thank you for spending these 10 minutes with me as we explored the shortest but sharpest book in the Hebrew Bible. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who might like it too, or leave a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, keep learning, keep laughing, and keep finding the big lessons hidden even in the smallest corners of Jewish tradition.